Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to EIG's third in a series of guest panel webinars focused on applying digital twins and AI solutions in production and warehousing, leveraging ERPs, WMS, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and of course, the digital twin. To what? To enable scalability and growth. With our guest panelists, Hosni Adra from CreateASoft, founded in 1992, John Cosgrove, Atlantic Handling Systems, founded in 2005, and Dani Kaplan, SMC Data, founded in 1980. We appreciate that you're taking the time to join today's webinar on building an evolving resilient enterprise. And we welcome your questions throughout the webinar, and we look forward to those. Please enter those into the chat and get ready and pull EV in the chat as the sign in. This is the third in a series of webinars. Our first webinar was on maximizing your production warehouse capacity with Darren Lezak. That's on the EIG website. And then we went into the financial investment with our guest panelist, Josh Chenany. And that was an excellent webinar just a couple months ago. And here we are today. Next month, we'll be getting into applying artificial intelligence and vision systems with Nile Perek. That'll happen in August. And then we'll resume the rest of the webinars here that you see. If you want a different webinar, please do reach out in the webinar. So we look forward to your questions and comments on applying digital twins in the marketplace. And we'll just get right into the deliverables. Deliverables today are addressing challenges of integrating production warehouse automation. Our second area is gaining insights on knowing when to justify an artificial intelligence digital twin and automation into your facility. And then we'll get into some optimizing your current future warehouse, a 1, 2, 3 step. 1, 2, 3 punch, as we call it. And then we'll get into enabling technology in the digital twin, and then we'll have some case studies. With that, we'll get right into introductions. John?
Yes, I'm John Cosgrove, Atlantic Handling Systems. We have been supplying and installing all types of material handling systems. We're a systems integrator. Now we're over 40 years in the industry, 45 to be exact. We provide our customers a wide range of industry supply chain solutions. We have in-house engineering, we have in-house project management, and essentially what we do is we design, sell, and install conveyor systems and storage systems. We're a division of Mayberry Material Handling, which makes us one of the largest systems integrator in the Northeast.
Picture a world where innovation harmonizes seamlessly with your operations, creating a symphony of real-time, actionable data that propels your organization into the future. Our robust toolset is your key to dynamic optimization and instant insights. It weaves together a tapestry of diverse data systems, from ERP, MRP, WMS, PLC, to IoT devices and more, forging intricate connections and bringing your data to life in vibrant 2D, 3D, and immersive VR landscapes. But that's just the beginning. Our integrated AI engine takes the lead, continuously learning the intricacies of your operations and orchestrating real-time predictive analytics and optimizations. It's akin to having a visionary guide for your business, always anticipating the next move. Our web interface is not just a window, it's a gateway to a new era of digital transformation. Customized views, dynamic dashboards, real-time work instructions, and alerts that pulse with immediacy are at your fingertips. With Digital Twin Studio, you're not merely adapting to change, you're pioneering it.
Hello, everyone. Hosni with CreateASoft, one of the partners and founders of the company back in '92. We actually started doing digital twin and integrated AI with digital twin since 2011, and we have applied it to many industries, including warehousing and manufacturing. We'll touch on some of the implementations today in the warehousing industry, and as things come along, we'll touch on manufacturing and how it applies. More to come as we go through the webinar.
Thanks, Hosni. Dani?
Dani Kaplan, we represent supply chain software for manufacturer distribution food, mid-market companies. It has warehouse management integrated into it and analytic. It enables company to know what's available in inventory, afterwards allocate for production and future orders and modern inventory. In today's supply chain reality, it's a very important factor to know what you have in inventory. Otherwise, you end up with production disruption, order cancellation, and warehouse space issues.
Thanks, Dani. Appreciate it. Just a little bit about Enhance International Group. We're a group of 50+ companies, consultants, consulting companies, and software as a service providers. We focus on people, process, data, technology, from strategy to execution. Today, we're focused on autonomous infrastructure and bringing that restructuring and automating to grow your enterprise. We're focused on helping and enabling you. Today's agenda is focused on addressing your challenges and knowing when to use artificial intelligence, digital twins, and automate your facility. Second is we're looking at the state of artificial intelligence, where it is in the marketplace. Then we're going to get into the factors to take into account when applying AI, digital twins, within your production facility and warehouse. And then we're going to get into some best practices, and then we're going to be showing some demos. So with that, we're going to start right away into showing a demo. Hosni?
Yes, thank you, Jim. Thank you, John and Dani. So as you would see, a representation of a digital twin basically is a direct correlation of what's happening in real life. It's when things move in a twin, they move in real life and vice versa. So they basically track. It has the ability to load data and understand the data that it's fed into it. So in traditional simulation environments, all this information is actually factored in through distributions and through curve fitting type algorithms that are actually generating some mock-up data, which requires a lot of Monte Carlo simulations to run in order to generate an actual actionable results. So that takes time to actually propagate and apply to the systems. In a digital twin, it consumes real data. It uses AI and machine learning to understand how things will flow, and it will proceed based on that to generate recommendations on what things will change and how they would apply. You can apply that to the manufacturing floor, to all of the different components, and connect all of the scanning equipment, all of the barcode, RFID that are actually in the system. You attach that to your WMS and ERP to get a full representation of the plant, of the warehouse. The twin becomes a true representation of real life. And it's going to allow you to actually look at specific items. You hover over a pallet, it tells you what it is, when it was received. It's truly a interactive from the way it behaves, the way it projects what will happen going forward. So when you design these conveyor systems and set them up, you would already know before you even set them up how fast they're going to need to be, how long they need to be, how much buffer you would have at each station. So you'd basically walk into an implementation, as you'll see, with enough knowledge so that to minimize that risk factor of the overall implementation. From a visual representation, you can make it as cool as you want it to be, or you can just strictly stay within a 2D space and get the environment, get the results you need. It's really the representation that you're trying to get to that will get you that visuals on a 2D, 3D. And then again, as you transition to VR and augmented reality in the warehouse.
Thanks, Hosni. John, any comments on this?
Yeah, the great part about all of this is, years ago we would do simulation, but we wouldn't have the analytics like the digital twin has to analyze all the data and make sure that we're doing it correctly. So it's a it's a win-win here between the simulation and, you know, what Hosni spoke about, how long the conveyors have to be, what the speed has to be, you know, how many diverts, so on and so forth. This was all work that we used to have to engineer out and time consuming. Now with the digital twins, we not only get the simulation, but we also get the analysis, which is great.
Thanks, John. And Dani, your thoughts?
It gives you a full picture of the warehouse movement, inventory, allocation, productivity, and it's a very important factor keeping up in the knowledge and knowing what's going in the warehouse between productivity, human resource, and inventory.
Thanks, guys. With that, we'll move on to the polling question, the first polling question. Looks like we're getting some good responses already. We'll come back to this at the end of the section on what are the challenges that you have out there in investing and automating and integrating systems into your warehouse. John, a few thoughts on some of the things you see here?
Yeah, you know, one of the most important things is to have great partners that can work together and develop a so-called architecture of, you know, how to integrate the system. And you know, with the digital twins, we get the analytics to make that an easier and a smoother transition. So if you have the right ERP with warehouse management system, and you get the digital twins working on it and the right integrator, you can increase your productivity and have a big ROI for your company.
Thanks, John. Dani, your thoughts?
Integration is a very important factor today, because if you don't have the integration, you end up with business disruption. Having one-stop shopping eliminate the need to rely on multiple vendors that blame each other, and in the end of the day, the business suffer from it.
And Hosni?
Exactly. So a lot of these issues relate to basically the vendors working together and provided an integrated solution that goes all the way from the design to implementation and post-implementation. So that proof of ROI, that mitigation of the risk, ability to have accurate systems that are designed upfront, so you know what you're getting into. Again, it's going to flow from the twin to the integration and the actual implementation, all the way to the WMS and ERP that's hosting all of the data that's feeding the twin and the future optimization factors.
So it's fantastic. We got some questions coming in right away here before we move on to the next section here. How well will a digital twin model a low volume, high variation environment?
That's an excellent question. You know, actually low volume, high mix type implementations are probably the hardest to set up on a simulation type system. In a digital twin environment where you have data, you actually load your bill of material for each one of these items. You load your routings that you would have in your ERP. You can load the cost factor of it and actually be able to identify exactly how much it's going to cost you to build each one of these items and how they progress through. The advantage there is that the data is being fed directly from your ERP that you're using to run the factory. So there is no disconnect between the digital twin and the actual factory and the actual ERP system, and it will learn as it goes along. So as we tie in AI and ML into that digital twin, all of that new data set, new SKUs that you're making, and new bill of materials will actually flow directly into the twin and allow you to do that optimization up front and basically help to maintain that cost of SKU to be within the limit, and a lot of times reduce that cost of SKU going forward.
Excellent. With that, we're going to get into the actual slides here from ChatGPT. There are 5 different challenges that ChatGPT identified as far as implementing digital twins and showing that return on investments and that the solutions are sustainable. The first is integration with existing systems, which you guys already brought up, but they say the challenge is integrating AI solutions with legacy systems and existing warehouse management systems can be complex and costly. And they say the solution is ensuring robust APIs and middleware that facilitates seamless data exchange and integration without disruption and ongoing operations. With that, John, your thoughts?
Yeah, the integration part, as far as the automation, which is my what I'm most concerned about, is that I need good data to operate my equipment. The WMS and the ERP WMS, that's they provide the intelligence for me, the WMS, on how to run my system. So you can integrate with the WMS system, and then the AI, the digital twin can also integrate with my PLCs, which run my conveyors and do my sortation and so on and so forth. So it's a win-win, but you have to make sure that the partners you're using are all on the same page when it comes to integration.
And Dani, your thoughts?
Digital twin is essential today in today's reality. Getting accurate information, integrating, knowing what's happening in the warehouse. Because if you don't have it, you have this large information and end up with excess inventory, shorted inventory, and labor cost issue.
Thanks, Dani. And Hosni?
Exactly. So if we add on to that, the WMS and ERP have the key components of the warehouse or the plant, right? So the WMS has your SKUs, the wave, the schedules, the releases, the orders coming in and going out. The PLCs have the actual information that's happening on the floor. Additional IoT devices that could be as power monitoring or temperature monitoring on additional things that can feed into that picture that we're trying to paint of the warehouse, and which is the digital twin. So having that API connectivity is key. Having that robust connection back and forth is key to actually the success of, as you'll see, it's stage 3 of basically optimizing going forward with the digital twin.
And we have a question from the audience here on what inputs do you need to create a digital twin, from the CAD, process, flow diagrams, cameras, routings, and so forth, and above.
So I'll jump on that. Basically, you definitely need a CAD layout. If you're starting with a greenfield, then you basically have a structural representation of what the layout might be. Data sets is important. Any historicals of what the warehouse has done or a similar warehouse has done will be important. Type of SKUs, dimensions, all that will actually feed into the twin. Again, PLC data, if you have it available, you need to feed it in. Other IoT devices will feed the data in. So there's really no limit on how much data you feed it. The key to remember is the more you give it, the more accurate it's going to be in representing what it has. We actually developed a set of templates for manufacturing and warehousing that it is a good start. It's not definitely the end, but it's basically the start identifying what you need to do to implement the twin. But it's all going to feed based on that integration and PLCs piece, and it's going to use data from that WMS to basically create the full picture. And at the end, if you're running the warehouse, you have the data. You might have it in different locations. That's where the twin can collect from different data systems.
Excellent, Hosni. With that, we'll move on to the second challenge that ChatGPT identified, which is data quality and availability, with which we've already touched on a little bit. Again, the challenge of getting that high quality, clean, and consistent data, and which is really required for effective AI applications. And then the solution that they mention is implementation of comprehensive data management strategies, including data cleansing, standardization, real-time data processing pipelines. With that, Dani, your thoughts on data quality?
Integration and data is very important, especially if you don't have accurate data. You end up issue of inventory shortages, excess inventory, warehouse space issue, and it's a must having perfect integration.
Thanks, Danny. And John?
Yeah, it comes back to garbage in, garbage out. If you're not giving us good data, we can't process it and do the correct thing. So that's the most important thing. And it's what Hosni had said before. The ERP and the WMS are driving that. That's where it comes from. And I know Danny always preaches this. It's great to have the same ERP and WMS system together, so there's no interruption or anything like that could give you bad data.
And Hosni, your thoughts?
I mean, data is king. Data will always tell you the story the way it is. So having correct data is very important. Having it integrated correctly is important. Having it processed correctly through the machine learning and AI engine is very important. So there is an accuracy factor that we always apply to these digital twin, and what drives that accuracy is the data itself and how accurate and coherent it is within the system. That's where the WMS comes in. That's where the PLCs comes in, and integration actually comes into play.
Great. With that, I think we'll move on to the third question on scalability and flexibility. For ChatGPT identified the challenge as AI solutions need to be scalable to handle varying loads and adaptable to changing business needs. And the solution being use a cloud-based AI services and modular architectures that allow scaling resources up and down based on demand and can be easily configured as requirements evolve. Danny, do you want to start us off on this? You might be on mute, Danny. Cannot hear you. John, can you
Yeah,
talk?
Jim, I'll go in on this one. This is more for Hosni and Danny, but it continues to go back to what happens. But the real great thing, which I'm sure Hosni can speak to about all of this, is that it's constant. The digital twin is constantly analyzing what's going on, so it can handle all these different things. And the more you put in, that's accurate, the better it's going to be to develop you a solution.
Danny, go ahead. Can you hear us, Danny? I can't hear. Can you hear him?
No.
I can't hear him. Hosni, can you go ahead?
Yeah, so digital twin solutions are compute intensive. No matter how you put it, once you tie in AI, ML, all the data streams coming in, they're very compute intensive. Now, keep in mind that they allow you to basically visualize everything that happened in the past. They allow you to analyze the present, and they allow you to actually see what will happen going forward. So that data stream coming in and out is constantly happening, and it's all in real time. So that optimization needs to scale. If your warehouse scales in capacity and you're running more SKUs and more people, then you basically have to have enough computing power to scale it. Whether it is a cloud-based system or an on-prem time solution, it's really a decision that the IT infrastructure does. The key is it's got to be scalable, and you have to be able to provide it enough computing power to actually run and provide you the data fast enough so you can act on it.
Thanks, Hosni. Danny?
Having the data integrated and accurate, that's a very crucial piece now in the warehouse management. Otherwise, you don't have real information of what's available in inventory, what you allocated, and what should be ordered. It's number one issue of making sure you have enough inventory in today's reality.
Thanks, Danny. And with that, we have a question here on teaming. And it says, what is the size of the team that you believe an organization needs to efficiently implement a digital twin? Hosni?
So this can vary depending on the type of implementation that you want to do. Normally, the initial implementation will take, it depends if you want to do it yourself or you want to have somebody build that digital twin for you. Of course, if you're having somebody build the twin, then you're looking at maybe one person for a quarter of the time during the duration. As if you were taking on the implementation of the twin, depending on how many and how large the implementations are, you're looking at anywhere between 2 to 4 people to actually implement it. Now, keep in mind, the digital twin actually has the ability to modify itself. So once you have it set up and running, adding a SKU or adding a location or modifying the bill of material doesn't require a change of the twin. The twin itself automatically detect that. I mean, it does have AI and machine learning built into it to predict your operation. So it's using the same tools to help it identify what's happening and what's changing and applying that internally. So it will adapt to that and it'll tell you, it'll start capturing that data automatically. So the changes are very minimal once you get it up and running. It's just that initial, 4 to 12 weeks of implementation of the twin becomes a key.
Thanks, Hosni. With that, we'll move on to the next area challenge from ChatGPT, the challenge of cost and return on investment flexibility, the challenge being justifying the initial investment of ongoing AI implementations. It can be difficult, and the solution is, they mention, is performing pilot projects. Hosni, your thoughts on this?
Absolutely. Having a pilot project that has a high ROI initially is a key to basically avoid that hurdle that you would have with change management and with allowing people to understand culturally that this digital twin AI solution is not replacing people, but it's making people's jobs easier. So having a pilot will allow people to understand that. Pick an area that is that you can achieve results very quickly within 4 to 6 weeks on a digital twin implementation, and then start to show the results, and then you can expand it to the full implementation of the warehouse. Some people picking as an area just because it has a high visibility. It's where most of the cost is. So that's where they adjust from a warehouse perspective. But again, staging, put away, replenishment, these are all things that can be applied, that you can apply that initial pilot project and see the benefit and how it actually helps you out.
Thanks, Hosni. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, years ago, the RFID was supposed to become the big new rage throughout the distribution world, and it really didn't happen. But I can tell you that as you watch AI, as this growth has just accelerated, so it's almost to the point, if you're not in it, it's going to be change or die. I just see this within the next 5 years taking over, and I'm a big proponent also of pilot projects. Like Hosni said, maybe you take your picking area or, your receiving area, and you do those first, as opposed to, implementing it throughout the warehouse where you have, returns, receiving, picking, shipping. It's change is hard for a lot of people, and not that it's that painful from a standpoint which Hosni can speak to, or Dani, but if you try to implement something on such a grand scale, oftentimes people reject it, and you need people to buy in. And like Hosni said, we're not replacing people. We're making it more efficient. Your head count can go down, but you're going to be able to ship more with less, and that's going to help you to have a big return on investment.
Great points, John. Dani, your thoughts?
People are afraid of change. It's the nature of people. And the AI is the new technology now. So moving slowly, one department at a time, get on a test environment, lets people get used to it, learn what it is, and the fear is gone. Once they'll be able to use it, give excellent information, analytic information all around what's happening in the warehouse, human cost, warehouse cost, inventory issues, and allocation. It's one-stop shopping in visual basis.
Excellent, guys. It all comes down to time and money, as we know. There's a question here in the chat on how easy is it to build a digital twin for a network operation, the movement of goods from a warehouse to end users. Hosni, your thoughts?
So from a digital twin implementation, whether you are looking inside the four walls or outside of the four walls, it basically boils down to setting it up correctly and having the right data set. There is no limits on how far you extend that network outside, and you can set it up where it will travel through different highways and roads and so on, and actually see the impact of external conditions that will apply to those operations. So how hard it is to set up, it's almost the same as setting it up inside the four walls as compared to outside of the four walls. Now, one thing that I'd like to bring up around that question is that the external conditions that play into the digital twin. Last week I was talking to a person, and one of the key things for them is what happens if I know there's a snowstorm coming up next week and I need to prevent that disruption in my operation and I shipping and receiving out of the warehouse. So a digital twin can help you predict that. It helps you identify what those external conditions are, whether it is on the road, on shipping between multiple locations, or what's happening inside the warehouse. And then you will be prepared, you'll be proactive in actually having a solution before the problems actually happen, instead of being reactive and then just trying to recover from a downtime because of the storm. So these are all things you can apply from a digital twin perspective.
Thanks, Hosni. I think we're going to move on to the last ChatGPT feedback here, and the remaining challenges: workplace readiness and change management. And of course, the challenges, which has been brought up already, is the resistance of that workforce to adopting AI solutions, in fear of losing jobs and lack of skills to interact with these new technologies. And then, of course, the solution is investment in training. It says upskilling programs to prepare employees, and of course, foster a culture of continuous learning and highlight the augmentative rather than the replacement role of AI, which I think is a very important point. With that, Hosni, your thoughts?
Yeah, so this goes back to the fact that people are afraid of change, and everybody is afraid of AI because it's going to take everybody's jobs away. AI is only there to help us be more efficient in what we do. So, in a digital twin AI environment, the twin is going to learn how you slot your warehouse. It's going to learn how you do the put away. It's going to learn how you do staging. It's going to learn those intricacies of the system. So the WMS is going to generate waves and schedules and picking information that can go into the twin, get optimized, and then be sent back into the WMS. That doesn't mean that the scheduler that's actually generating those waves doesn't have a job. It just means that now the scheduler can look at other things and just maintain that the twin is running these things correctly and be able to see different things within the operation. So instead of just looking at that schedule, they will have a much bigger vision of what the operation is working. And just in case that person is not available today, the operation would still work exactly the same, because it has that ability to learn, and it has the ability to generate those schedules so that it keeps the operation running efficiently.
Thanks, Hosni. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, the digital twins kind of runs parallel to my automation. It makes the employee's job easier, and they have more, when the digital twin does the analytics, it makes it where they have more facts and more ability to make their job easier. And I think what you're going to see here, I'm going to talk a little bit later about the influence of European automation here in the United States. And a lot of that is because, we are beginning to face the same thing that Europe has, labor shortages as far as skilled workers in warehouses and so on and so forth, high wages, with the increase of the minimum wage. If you have to pay someone the minimum wage and the minimum wage is high in California at like $20 an hour, what are you going to pay the person who's been with you for 5 years or 10 years? And it's all going to drive the cost up. So the only way to overcome that is to get a bigger return on investment through using technology and automation to try to get yourself in a place where it can be profitable.
Thanks, John. And Dani, your thoughts?
Information is essential. One of the main issues company face now is lack of information, and lack of information leads to excess inventory, late deliveries, order cancellation, warehouse issues, and the digital twin give you a full picture in a 360 view, what you have in inventory, when to buy, how much to buy, and you don't depend on one individual that quit the job or did not show up to work with the assembly line stops.
Thanks, Dani. We have a lot of questions in here. I'll get to the first question here. That's what happens if one of the automation vendors is not willing to integrate and share APIs or connectivity? How would you handle this, Hosni?
This actually is very common, is more common than you think, where a vendor would not want to share the information because of whatever reason they might have. So in that case, what we would do is we would take the data of the warehouse, the way it's running today, we feed it into the machine learning engine, we configure it correctly, and then we let it run and understand the data. Once we have enough data through it, it actually will start to behave exactly the same as that system. So at that point, we wouldn't need the actual implementation. We just need to know how the system is going to react, and the digital twin will actually start reacting the same way. Questions on accuracy, that'll come up. We have achieved 99+% accuracy for these systems. Of course, you can strive to get 100%. It's really, I don't think it's attainable. Having a 99% accuracy is going to give you enough to actually do correct decisions and help you optimize going forward. And that's how we mitigated the issue. Sometimes more than one vendor actually does not provide access, and we constantly use machine learning because that's what it does best.
Thanks, Hosni. John, your thoughts?
It just makes the process easier if everyone works together. If you have a vendor who doesn't want to do that, as far as the automation side, call me, because with Hosni or Dani, we'll interact and integrate with them as much as we possibly can, because that's what's best for our customer, and in the end, it's best for us because it provides the best results.
Thanks, Dani. Your thoughts on integration?
That's a common issue today of people buying standalone warehouse management, and then they have integration issues. So when one side has an upgrade, one software has an upgrade, have data integration, and then each vendor blame the other one, resulting in inaccurate data. It's very important to have one integrated system, then then you eliminate the issue of having the twin system getting the data, because it's all in one, contained in one single vendor, and the information comes flawlessly to the twin system.
Thanks, Dani. Okay, we have another question here. We are in operations consulting, and we want to make simulations for some of our clients. Can we learn it or buy it? How to get trained on it? I think this is for Hosni.
Yeah. So as a consultant, what you can do is engage with us. We train your people on one or multiple of these systems that you're trying to implement. So we work with you, and then you can buy the software, you apply it, and then you can apply it as you go forward. The key to the training is that we use one of your existing clients as the base for the training. So at the end of that training, you actually have a system, you have a set of templates that you can use, and you build upon it. Historically, the first project that you would do, we would do 80% of the work, you would do 20%. The second one, it flips, where you do the 80%, we do the 20%. And then the third one and on, you're pretty much doing things on your own. And we're only supporting you when things go bad, when you really have an issue and you don't know what to do. But that's been the scenarios. It's been very successful at this point, and we'll be happy to work with you.
Great, thanks, Hosni. And then there's a question on real-time optimization. He says, but all the active variables also need to be in real time and not static. Is that correct? For example, headcount.
So everything has to be real time. So this was why we connect to multiple data systems. If you tell the digital twin that you have 3 pickers and in reality you have 10, then the digital twin optimization isn't going to be correct, right? So they all have to match. That's why having that correct data set available, whether it's in a WMS, the ERP, or the combination, and having a system that actually contains all that makes it easier, because then it is, it's getting the data accurately from that data system, and then tying it to the PLCs, tying it to the current state of the operation. If I try to optimize what's going to happen tomorrow based on yesterday's data, then I will get the wrong data set, wrong data optimization. So everything has to be as real time as feasibly possible. And real time could be a few seconds, few minutes, sometimes apart, but it cannot be days.
Excellent. And then there's a question here about linking to SAP. I guess the person says, I hope it's linked to SAP and works through RFID, which is the sweet spot, I believe, of how you're set up.
Yes. So with SAP, we can do multiple. We've connected with SAP quite a bit. You can set up views in SAP that we have access to. You can set up APIs to SAP. In some cases, some companies put in a data warehouse in between SAP and the digital twin. Keep in mind, when you do a data warehouse, you're losing a few seconds along the way. But it all depends on the implementation. So that's definitely very feasible. On the RFID side, RFID is just another data stream that we see. We do have an RFID filter that eliminates the noise from the RFID system, and then all the data feed into the digital twin. RFID adds to the data that you have. It does not replace what you have in a WMS or the data coming from the PLCs. It just adds to it. It augments that data so you have a more accurate representation of where everything single item is and how it's moving along within the operation. You can do passive, active, or if you want to decide to use the ultra wideband that's coming up, or a combination of IR and RFID. And so these are all different data systems that are providing what we call location services. It's the same as connecting IoT devices, power monitoring, temperature monitoring, even HVAC control. You can actually tie all that into the digital twin.
Okay, we have another question. Instead of relying on data completely and compute time, can you create and run a twin using event listening?
So in reality, it is all based on event listening. Every single event that happens in the real world is generating an event with a data component to it. So when there is an RFID scan, for example, that's an event that goes into the twin, along with the tag ID and some other information. When an IoT device identify a data change, for example, a power change, then that's an event coming into the digital twin. So in reality, it's all event driven at the end. So depending on how you set it up, you can go directly to the events, or you can just feed the data and have the events triggered internally.
And then we have a question for all three of the panelists. Is that return on investment green dollars or blue dollars? Meaning green dollars meaning real dollars, and blue dollars meaning unrealized dollars in productivity. John, you want to kick us off on this?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. You can't measure today, your employees serpentining through warehouses, trying to find items, and that happens without the WMS or a locator system. So, those are those blue dollars. But on the green dollar side, you just get to see the productivity that it has increased and the amount that ships out, customer satisfaction. These are all things that come into play when you're talking about return on investment. But there is in automation a big green dollar savings if you imply it correctly, and especially if you drive it with, a great WMS, ERP WMS system, and if you apply the digital twin to get to AI and generate, sound advice to what you have to do.
Thanks, John. Dani, your thoughts?
Having the integration today is a must. The issue is bottom line cost. With labor cost raising, inventory being cost going up with the Red Sea issue going around Africa, and freight are higher, and the item cost you more. Having integrate information in real-time analysis, it's a must to have efficient operation in the warehouse.
Thanks, Dani. And Hosni, on return on investment, green and blue dollars.
So there's really, and it's a very good distinction between the two. If you're trying to implement automation, an AGV company might want to sell you 25 AGVs. If you run them correctly, you might need 20. So in that case, you're saving 5 AGVs within the implementation, so that becomes a pure green dollar investment. You're setting up 3-level pick mod compared to 2-level pick mods. Again, it's just how you set up the warehouse from a capacity and based on the data that you have, that's going to save you on the green dollar. The number of pickers you have every day, the digital twin can basically predict how many pickers you need tomorrow based on the volume that you have. So now you have 2 less pickers that you would need to run the same amount of operation. And I'm not just using pickers, it could be put away, replenishment, and different things. So these are all, again, green dollars. Now, there is an efficiency improvement and overall cost of SKU that's tied into that, which goes into the blue dollar and efficiency improvement. So you're doing more with less, or you're doing more with the exact same a number of people and equipment that you have within the operation. So that's your cost of SKU of storing that item within the warehouse, storing, shipping, and receiving. And that's contributing to that blue dollar component. Now, keep in mind, as the digital twin keeps running, it's constantly looking for ways to save, whether it is the number of people that you need, the pick path that you need to have, or just way to optimize so that you can reslot slightly differently and actually get an extra 3, 4, 5% efficiency within the warehouse. So this is all dollar savings that are in most cases considered the blue dollar savings because it's costing you less to run the operation.
Thanks, Hosni. With that, there's another question on what are the major risks, security, data leakage, etc. John, you want to start us off on that?
Well, I'm sure, as everyone is aware with cyber today, there are attacks every day from all different places in the world. So, you have to be vigilant about that. I do know that one customer of mine, someone got through on a call in on a conveyor system they got in and they got in and hacked them. So I think, you have to be vigilant. You have to have an IT team that's ready to work on that. But I'm sure Hosni and Dani can speak more to that than I can. But, as far as my equipment, it all comes through from them. They feed me the intelligence, except for my PLC, which people have been known to do that. They come in through there.
Yeah, they're getting creative, aren't they?
Yeah.
Dani, on security, major security risks?
Security is a major issue today. So security is a major issue today because if you don't have a very good firewall, people go on the internet, pick up a virus, and then it affects your entire system and you're being hijacked.
Great point, Dani. Hosni?
So Security is always a key component for everybody. That's why we don't implement anything except that it on-prem. If it is within a cloud system, it's within the internal IT infrastructure cloud system. So it's covered by the internal firewalls and it is protected from the outside. Nobody wants to share data outside of their internal firewalls, and that's really one of the key components. So we understand that to be an issue, and that's why we provide a purely an on-prem solution within the implementation, with all the data staying within the IT control and IT infrastructure.
Thanks, Hosni. With that, we'll move on. And a lot of what we've discussed up to this point is about how to perform the best transformation out there. And, you know, good transformations are more likely to be successful if they progress in these 6 areas. These are pretty well-known best practices, but we'll just bring them up quickly here. Of course, your strategy, why are you doing it? And then building out your capabilities, your operating model, technology, and data, and of course, your change management, the communication and scaling. So we just want to mention this. This is very important to be launching this type of program with your folks alongside with Hosni and Dani and John here. One of the best practices that I found out there was from McKinsey, and they talked about how long it takes to convert an organization or a facility, and they talk about 2 to 3 years. I think we can do that a little bit faster. I know Hosni, he's been doing this since 2011. Hosni, your thoughts on this?
Yes, normally what we would do is we would start seeing results coming out in the first 10 to 12 weeks of the implementation. That's where you actually will start to see an ROI coming back for the initial pilot or implementation that you go through. Within a 2-year time frame, you would have the full implementation basically set up and running, pretty much to its full capacity. So that 4-year is more of a 2-year time frame for us, and we've been successful in achieving that within a 2-year time frame.
Thanks, Hosni. With that, we're just going to move on to back to the challenges, and we're just going to close it out here. John, any closing comments on what you see here and what you've heard from the audience?
Yeah, goes right back to, integration is the key. You have a system here with the digital twin that can not only provide you, what you need, but will also analyze what you need and come out with a proven solution. So the integration of the ERP, WMS, automation, and then the digital twin, if you can do that, you're going to get a huge ROI. And I think that people are going to learn that this is something that's going to happen very quickly throughout the industry. It's not going to take 15 to 20 years. This is going to be within the next 3 to 5 years. You're going to see a lot of AI and digital twin working in throughout distribution.
Thanks, John. Hosni, your thoughts?
Yes, there's really few things that pop up. One is accuracy. That digital twin needs to be accurate. It has to have accurate data coming in. It has to have accurate AI and machine learning to actually predict what's going to happen. Another key component is firefighting. Today, half of your time is spent firefighting and trying to figure out how to avoid these problems that come up throughout the operation. That's what the digital twin and AI is set up to do. It's going to identify what those problems will be, and it's going to tell you how you can adjust and fix them. So that firefighting aspect of the overall system basically goes away, and you let the digital twin and AI actually figure out when they will happen, whether it's on the maintenance side, not, trucks not arriving on time, equipment being down. It could be anything. But that's where really AI and machine learning help a lot. Integration is key. You have to have the data for all this to work. So everything has to talk together in order to provide that complete solution. And that's really what we're striving for with with John and Dani to create that cohesive integration environment where data will flow accurately between the different systems and provide that pure digital twin with AI to help you go forward and save time in the operation and money, of course.
Great. Thanks, Hosni. Dani, close us out.
To second John and Hosni, integration is a major issue. People who buy multiple software like standalone warehouse software and other end up in integration issue, and it leads to a lot of business disruption, because then one vendor blame the other one, AT&T blame Verizon, Verizon blame T-Mobile, and you end up with multiple a dog chasing his tail and corrupted data. Having integration is the most important issue for anything AR or warehouse automation or inventory accuracy or everything across the business.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Dani. With that, we'll move on to the next section, and that's the state of artificial intelligence and digital twins. Just some stats before we get into this. From an IoT perspective, Internet of Things perspective, it's about a $275 billion business right now with a 25% CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. ERPs are around 500 billion or 50 billion, sorry, and it has a CAGR about 8%, whereas MRPs, material requirements planning, is about a $15 billion business. That's the flow of your goods, and that's about growing at 6% compounded annual growth rate. And digital twins is at 15 billion right now and growing at 30%. So it's growing faster than any other major software components in there. And with that, we want to have Hosni provide us a little bit more detailed explanation of what a digital twin is. Hosni?
Yeah, so everybody has been striving to get to that industry 4.0 and get to what we call smart manufacturing, where it's really just a collection of data points to identify what's happening within the operation. The key to a digital twin is to actually allow it to consume that data and do something with it beyond just displaying a chart. So once we feed that data into what we're going to call the cognitive twin at the end, it's actually going to control data from the physical assets of the operation, not just from the data coming in from the systems. It's going to get the information from the people movement, how they're actually working. All that data is going to feed into the digital twin and work together to identify the overall system and understand that behavior. Now, we're feeding AI. We're using AI and machine learning to learn the basis of the operation, how it works. AI is going to help predict and identify how we can avoid the issues going forward. So this is really our predictive twin. It's going to look ahead into the future, and it's going to allow us to figure out how to be proactive in managing the operation. Now, all that together is going to use that generative AI to basically constantly modify itself. So as I mentioned before, if you add a SKU or if you change the locations of the items within the warehouse, the digital twin will be able to know and adapt. So it's constantly learning from these changes of the operation to help you move forward. But at the end, it's all that cognitive twin that's identifying, understanding the behavior of the operation and helping you predict and constantly learning throughout the system. So that's really what we're trying to achieve by any of these implementations, so you can have the full cycle and the full benefit of these twins with AI and ML. And keep in mind, integration is the heart of this. Data is also the heart of this. So we've got to make sure everything works together to actually achieve that environment of a cognitive twin. If they don't work together, there will be a lot of headaches along the way, and it will start to take away from the benefits of the operation because of all the frustrations that will happen when things don't integrate correctly.
Thanks, Hosni. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's why you need to use proven partners, people who have worked together, know what to do with each other and provide the data that's necessary to get to that point where we can generate, and something that can be analyzed effectively and deliver a great AI solution.
Thanks, John. Dani, your thoughts?
It all goes back. It all goes back to the issue of having having single database information with the right partners who are willing to work with each other. Otherwise, you have people company working against each other, vendor working against each other, which results in business disruption. Having one single database that interface WMS and ERP and the twin together is essential.
Yeah, and I think, Dani, what you just said flows perfectly into this slide here on having everything integrated in a WMS, OMS, WCS, and of course your TMS. So being able to integrate all this data into a central platform with the VAI platform, and then putting the wrapper of the digital twin on top provides a fantastic total ecosystem of driving improvements, continuous improvements in real time across your work streams. With that, we're going to move on to incorporating this digital twin into this 1, 2, 3 step. Hosni?
Yeah, so basically, if you're implementing a greenfield or a brownfield type of implementation, you need to start with some bases and start some design work in order to implement the full warehouse. So this is, the forecasted load, the actual structural representation of the building and where you want to be. And then you start to apply layout analysis. You put in kind of sample racks, you put some automation, and you do some analysis of the model. So that's where the digital twin really comes in initially, to implement that initial model and allow you to know what type of automation, how fast they're going to run, how much buffering you need, what the layout should be, what your pick path needs to be. And you start to look at the WMS and ERP to make sure that you emulate them correctly and the warehouse is going to run correctly once you start up and running in a few months. Now, in stage 2, you start acquiring the equipment. There will be some variations from what the digital twin initially identified as the key solutions and what you actually can get from the marketplace. So at that point, you start to identify those changes, you plug them into the twin and make sure that those variations actually play out. At the same time, you start implementing those. So this is when you start to implement those systems, or implement the conveyors and the scanners and so on, and the racks within the warehouse itself. And you start planning the WMS and ERP so that it will work with these systems. Again, everything is being tested within the twin, because the twin is going to represent what the future of the operation is going to be once you go up and running. So in stage 3, that's when you basically start you start the warehouse. You basically now performing actual operation within the warehouse, but then everything that you've done has already been tested. So you already know that the warehouse picking method is correct, the way you're waving it is correct, the way you're receiving, staging, and doing your putaways and replenishment, they're all been vetted out and organized based on what the digital twin actually allowed you to see. So from that point, you have a very low risk factor in the potential issues that will come up within the startup phase. And then since the twin is already available, you have that AI and you have that machine learning built in. Now you can turn it on and start to do predictive optimization and predictive analytics going forward. So now it starts to look into the future and constantly helping you to analyze. So you're using all that development of the twin all the way through to actually achieve that final outcome of AI, ML, and a twin working together to optimize the operation. Again, it all requires that synergy from the beginning, from the twin, the digital twin implementation, the automation, the WMS, ERP. So all these components need to start working together. At the end, you will get to a much easier startup point and much less headache for everyone within the project.
Thanks, Hosni. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, when you go down stage one and you look at the automation selection, this is where Hosni and I work together. You know, I can give him the type equipment to put into the digital twin to try to make it easier and let them know of equipment that is available that can be analyzed to make sure that it works for the client.
Thanks, John. And Dani, your thoughts?
Because VAI software represent has the warehouse part of the ERP system, integration to the, as you can see from the picture at the bottom, integration with Twin to be no issue at all, because it's a seamless integration between like an engine and transmission in the car that works together.
Excellent. There's a question here from the audience. Can you provide a user story about how the job was made easier by implementing the digital twin?
So there are many stories on how the digital twin actually makes somebody's job easier, whether it is from identifying the maintenance aspect of the operation all the way to how you pick and how you operate every day. One example would be, if you're trying to charge AGVs, for example, within the operation, and when do you charge the AGVs so that they can be more efficient? So from an AGV vendor, they have a limit that it's going to hit and then it'll charge. The digital twin actually can fine-tune that charging behavior to actually make it give you a bit more out of the AGVs. So you're gaining anywhere between 5 to 7% additional work time on the AGVs if you know when to charge them based on what's running within the operation. So that's an implementation that's been done quite a bit. How you change, you see a manual operation, and then there'll be a potential for an automation improvement. So that's where we put in the equipment for the automation, identify what the savings are if you put automation instead of that manual operation. Integration between people and automation. That's always a sticky point within all of these type of systems. And a lot of automation companies assume that the person is going to work exactly the same like a machine. Well, they don't. So that's where all these implementation will help on a digital twin side.
Thanks, Hosni. With that, I think we'll keep moving here. Keep the questions flowing. Appreciate it. We'll get into the third section on factors to take into account when applying artificial intelligence digital twins within your production facility. With that, Hosni?
Yeah, so there's always that issue of how are we going to build the twin, where do we start, and what kind of information we need, and a lot of the questions that actually came up today. But the first thing is we need to identify what are the limitations and capacities of the plant and the warehouse that we're trying to do. So it's not as much as I want to build thousands or I want to ship thousands of widgets or cases a day. It's, what are the equipment that I need to actually be able to do that? So that's really the key. And I want to make sure I spend within the budget limit that I have to be able to ship these on time and within limits. So that's always a concern that everybody has. Now, when you put all that stuff together, there's always a risk of things may not work correctly. The integration may not be correct. There's some delays in different areas. So the digital twin is actually going to help you identify these things. Demand patterns and how they change. So these are all key factors. And of course, the warehouse itself and how it plays out. A lot of companies would say, well, I've got 10 warehouses and they basically all work the same. We have them in different areas of the country, but they're all basically the same. So they will take the exact same implementation and put it in all 10 warehouses. What you miss there is demand is different between them. The SKUs that are actually going in one is different than the stuff that's going into the other. The way you slot them is different. So if you take the exact same set of equipment and roll them out to 10 warehouses where they have different demand patterns and different SKUs coming in, your results are not going to be matched. They're not going to be the same. So that's why it's important to actually do that on an individual warehouse based on your locations. Now, a lot of times, one of the key aspects that come up here is, what if I don't have data? I just started this warehouse. I don't have any of that data set. What do I do? So that's where you use AI to generate the data for you. We have tools actually that will load patterns and profiles of orders that you would have and profiles of SKUs, and it will actually create data as if the warehouse has been running for years. And you can play with the data, you can add capacity, you can add orders, remove orders, and actually see what the limits of these warehouses are before you even do anything on the ground. So you actually have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen, even if you don't have existing data set to model from.
Well, Hosni, it looks like you answered a bunch of the questions here.
Oh.
So that's great. And then an Indian company implemented Twins successfully, it mentioned here. And I think what if data in the warehouse. So they asked, is there any Indian company that's implemented the digital twin successfully, was the question.
We have actually a number of Indian companies that implemented the digital twin and were successful. And we have a few partnership with companies in India actually to take that on and do the local implementations within that. So I can take that offline and I can refer you to either some of our partners or we can work with you.
Excellent. So with that, maybe bring us through this closing area slide here.
So it's pretty much starts with the identifying the spatial representation of where you want to put that warehouse, identifying the key constraints, what you want to ship, what the volumes are, what the capacities are going to be in the first year, second year, third year. Basically plan out the full implementation, and you use the digital twin to actually implement that offline before you buy equipment, before you start laying out the structure in its full component. This way you can identify the loads on the floor for the different racks and so on, and you won't have those constraints once you bring the warehouse up and running. Then automation. You know what the automation is. So this is where you kind of fine tune the automation selection. You start rolling them out. You start actually implementing them on the floor. You start connecting those PLCs. And of course, you're doing all this to maximize your storage density and efficiency of the warehouse. So that's where you start planning slotting. You plan the implementation. You plan your flow within the warehouse all the way from receiving all the way to shipping. Then you go into the last step where you turn everything on. You have your ERP and WMS tied into it. It's feeding it all the data that it needs with the VAI cloud. You basically have all of your data components from HR to picking to the WCS component and how to run. So all that is built into that environment that's feeding the twin and providing that next live implementation and that AI enabled systems, basically.
Thanks, Hosni. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, when you talk about greenfield, brownfield, and then you move to where you just let as Hosni spoke about the twin determine what you're going to do, that's where we have to come in and look at the automation. We look at the twin will tell us about the density and one of the things today, one of our first webinars in this series had to do with real estate. And we know that, the cost of real estate has gone up as industrial real estate. And so what we try to do is we try to use the entire cube of the building, and we use automation to try to help us do that and maximize your storage and give you high density, and then give you a great flow that will then give you the big return on investment.
Thanks, John. Dani, your thoughts?
I can't stress enough the importance of having integrated systems, because in my published article on LinkedIn, I stress the issue of multiple vendors where you have broken links and result to inaccurate system. having integrated ERP with WMS, and then you have the twin attached to it, give you accurate analysis, what you have in stock, what to buy, how much to buy, and how to allocate the warehouse and the workforce in it. It's a very important factor, having all the pieces together rather than have separate satellite and having vendor arguing with each other.
Excellent points, Danny. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll get on to the last section of some best practices in leveraging and optimizing it. Really, at the end of the day, is how do you sell this internally, and what's the return on investment? We talked about how important that is, and we'll work from left to right and kick it off with John.
Yeah, we can increase efficiency by using automation from 10 to 30%. The labor cost, of course, we all know the rising cost of labor, say 5 to 10%, and we can increase your productivity, which today is extremely important because we know that in order for us to be profitable companies, we have to be able to ship more and get it out with accuracy. Of course, we've seen it throughout the industry that the companies that can do that, they can ship quickly and they do it accurately and they have high throughput. They're the companies that are profitable. And what I spoke about before, the space utilization, we need to use your cube so that you use all of your real estate so that you can achieve maximum return on investment.
Very impressive numbers there, John. Dani, your thoughts on how you've been able to do it from the ERP perspective?
Having ERP and WMS integrated achieve multiple benefits. First one, it's having no integration issues, and you know exactly what your inventory is. Net inventory is what you have in inventory after you allocate for production and future orders, and when the next order will come in. Late order delivery result in production disruption, order cancellation, and chargeback. Having accurate inventory, you know what to buy and how much to buy and whom to buy. And material tracking, having accurate provide production disruption. The RF device, some of them are using smartphone. It costs $400 instead of $4,000 gun. In today's labor issue, with high turnover, they're using a smartphone, takes no time to train somebody. And having seamless integration with the warehouse in the ERP, eliminate the issue of multiple vendors of arguing with each other when something goes wrong. And multiple locations is a major issue. You know what you have in each warehouse, especially in M&A case. So using common carrier, if one warehouse overstock and one warehouse understock, you have a common carrier ship from the warehouse that have excess inventory, or you transfer the warehouse X inventory to the warehouse has low inventory.
Fantastic. Lots of ways to save money here. And closing it out, Hosni, from the digital twin perspective.
So digital twin is going to constantly save you money throughout, whether it is pre-installation or post-installation or on a daily basis as it's going through. The reduction goes all the way from the cost of SKU, which is the blue dollar actually implementation, all the way to the type of automation and the type of implementations that you're using throughout the warehouse. We've seen reductions anywhere between 5 to 10% on a daily basis. We've seen reduction in maintenance and predictive maintenance type aspect of 5 to 20%. Of course, workforce reduction that's coupled with some automation and actually changing the way things are done, whether changing the pick path, changing where things are slotted, doing directed put away to minimize the number of touches within the warehouse. All these are things that are really working toward reducing the cost of running the operation all the way through.
Excellent. Very impressive ways to save money for our customers, and proven. Digital Twin's been around since 2011. John's been around for a long time, and Dani's maybe even longer. So lots of experience here on how to save money in your facility. With that, we're just going to just mention that there's best practices in the deck. We're not going to go over these today. Feel free to follow up with Dani, John, and Hosni on the best practices once you receive the slides. And with that, we'll close it out with a demo of a digital twin going live here, a live representation of a facility or a number of different facilities. Hosni?
Yes, so all of the digital twin basically provide you metrics, whether they are on dashboards that are you're basically looking at on a web-enabled dashboard, or on the actual twin where you look at the different machines, they are providing that metrics on it. So you don't have to figure out what your OEE is. The digital twin is going to tell you what the OEE is. If it is too low or too high, it does not care. It's going to give you the numbers the way they are, right? As I always say, data does not have ego. It will explain and it'll show you the problems. If there are problems, it will show you that you're doing things better if it is doing things better. So whether it is from the productivity of the people, whether it's the productivity of your automation system, of the AGV system, material handling, all that basically become part of your digital twin implementation all the way through. It does have full cost implementation of every single component, every single movement, so you know what it should cost you to run the operation all the way through. Of course, you can set up these automation systems to be as detailed as you want them to be, and actually identify all these movements to be basically what they need to be from an automation and implementation point of view. You can take it to the small machine all the way to the full warehouse, have every single location mapped out, every single item. And again, all this stuff is happening with under 12 weeks, and where you actually will start to see the ROI and start to see those improvement that you would have within the warehouse.
Thanks, Hosni. John, closing comments on this video?
Yeah, it just shows exactly, a lot of the things that we do today, but what it does is it provides the analysis, the digital twins, to get us to a point where we're almost perfect. So, the amount of conveyor we need, the speed we have to run at, as Hosni has mentioned. So a lot of the guesswork is gone, and it provides that intelligence, and that's the wave of the future, and that's where we're going.
Thanks, John. Dani, your thoughts?
Information is essential today in today's unsettled reality, and the digital twin gives you a 360 view of the warehouse, of the inventory, of the analysis, which is very important factor.
Thanks, guys. Very impressive discussion today, and we want to thank everyone for joining us today and asking your fantastic questions throughout the webinar. Hopefully we addressed the deliverables and what you were looking for in this webinar, and we look forward to you as joining in our next webinar, which will be focused on vision systems in the warehouse and generally in the docking area of the warehouse with Nile Perry. With that, we have some closing comments. John, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, it's what we spoke to before. The future is now. You have to, even if you don't think you're going to engage in this within the next few years, you should definitely start to put it on your radar and look at the digital twins and the integration of all of these things, having the same ERP and WMS so you can deliver, accurate data to the twins, and that, we be able to automate and keep you in the game. And I think it's going to be essential for people to do this.
Thanks, John. Dani, your thoughts?
Integration, as you can see, integration is a major issue to have perfect inventory and perfect analysis. But having one single stop shopping, the digital twin will work perfect.
Thanks, Dani. And Hosni?
Yeah, so digital twin and AI are basically here to stay. They're going to be the mainstream of a lot of the things that we do. We are venturing more into virtual reality and augmented reality. Those are things that are actually going to come up in the next few months. We already support VR. We're going to support AR soon. And as I always say, digital twin is always a digital win. So thank you all for joining, and I'll talk to work with you all.
Thanks, Hosni. Thanks, John. Thanks, Dani. And my closing comments is we've been talking about Industry 5.0 for, it seems like, for a decade now. I think we're finally there. And this is proof in the pudding. Digital twins have been around for a while. I mean, Hosni's been doing this since 2011. A lot of proven experience in making this happen to automate your flows, not only for your warehouses, production, but your back office. There's a lot of opportunities from an Industry 5.0 perspective in this realm of digital twins. And we've just hit the tip of the spear of what's going to be here to come. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to your joining and participating in future webinars. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.